So Power Rangers in Space is regarded as one of the best seasons of the franchise, and I would say that myself. It's one of my favorite seasons of the Power Ranger franchise in the almost 30 years the franchise has been running for. Power Rangers in Space is definitely in my top 5 and top 10, very high up there. But when Power Rangers in Space was in pre-production, it was looking like a very, very different show than the final finished product that we got eventually. And oh boy, was there some changes. Now, the information I'm giving you guys is known as the Power Rangers in Space Bible, or the Power Rangers pre-Bible, where it was sort of all the outlines and the ideas the producers and the writers had for the show coming up with it when they were writing Turbo. So they were writing Turbo and they were writing ideas for Power Rangers in Space at the same time. Now, I'm going to have a link to where you can find this big Power Rangers in Space Bible and read it for yourself. I recently did a live stream live reacting to these raw files for myself and having a look at them for the very first time, and oh boy, that was a trip down memory lane, or just opening up the rabbit hole of going down this Bible of Power Rangers. So let's talk about some interesting facts that could have been in Power Rangers in Space. Now, I'm not going to list everything, I'm going to go over the important stuff, so this is probably going to be, I don't know, a top 5 list of what could have happened in the franchise. I don't know what I'm going to call this video at this point, but let's go over what could have been Power Rangers in Space. So the biggest thing to take away from this news, and I'm definitely going to talk about it first because it's definitely going to get your attention, that is Justin and TJ were planned to be the red and blue in Space Rangers. TJ being the red Space Ranger and Justin being the blue Space Ranger, which is pretty wild. So that means Justin would have went into space with the Rangers, but that's mostly because of the ideas they had planned for in space at first. I don't think they planned to turn it into Star Trek or something in space. I think from what I remember reading through the concept and the ideas that they pitched, saying the Rangers would just jump from planet to planet and moving around the place as they try and find Zordon, who's been captured by the bad guys. So Justin would have went to space with them regardless, but TJ being the red Space Ranger, that would have been cool. So I know a lot of people are probably confused, why is TJ the red Space Ranger in these early drafts? Well, like I just said, these were early drafts, and I don't think they probably planned on Christopher Kamen Lee being Andros at this point. They probably hadn't planned that far ahead, and they thought they'd just do another suit swap like they've done with Zeo and Turbo and stuff like that. So I think they never planned on having like Christopher Kamen Lee come in and play Andros at this point. So this was very, very early pre-production. So if there's no Andros, there was no Astrometer. So in place of that, you got Divatox as the main villain, which I'm kind of mixed about. I love Divatox as a character. I love Hilary Shepard as Divatox. She's a lot of fun. She brings a lot of charisma and playfulness to the character. That would have been cool to see in space. But to get Divatox instead of Astrometer, it's a weird trade-off we wouldn't have gotten. But it'd been an interesting turn of events. So instead of Astrometer, we would have gotten Divatox as the main villain, which is freaking crazy. But what's also really interesting is Ecliptor would have been her second in command. So Ecliptor would have been the new guy coming in and taking charge over Elgar and Rygor and stuff like that. He would have been the second in command. And if Ecliptor was the second in command for Divatox, then that means he would have had some weird rivalry with TJ instead of Andros, and that would have been something as well. I would have loved to see that as a kid. I mean, this just creates so many what-if theories if Ecliptor was rivals with TJ and stuff like that. Like, it opens the door for so many possibilities with what they would have had planned if they used the Mega Ranger footage eventually. And like I said, if you want to read all of this stuff, you can find it in the link down below for the Power Rangers pre-Bible. I recommend checking it out. It's a fun read. It's a zip file you download and you read a bunch of photos and stuff like that with all the notes and the scripts and stuff like that. It's a fun rabbit hole you'll go down. So yeah, Divatox was the main villain for the season, and even Dark Spectre was not going to be using the Malagor costume. They would have used the Gold Oil costume for Dark Spectre. And if you don't know who Gold Oil is, he's this monster from Power Rangers Turbo that appeared once or twice, I believe. And him being the main villain for Power Rangers in Space, or what could have been Power Rangers in Space, does make a lot of sense. I mean, that suit is very, very threatening and scary looking. That would have definitely been a final boss that they could have recycled for Power Rangers in Space, because even with Power Rangers in Space, there's a lot of villain suits they used for in space, I mean not in space, Lost Galaxy, like the Furio suit. That was a character from Mega Ranger that they used for Lost Galaxy. So yeah, there's your other fun fact for the day, which is kinda crazy. And because Divatox would have been the main villain for Power Rangers in Space, there was also going to be a brand new location for the Rangers to travel to, called the Power Dome. So instead of having the Astro Megaship as their base of operations, they'd have this brand new base called the Power Dome, and it would have replaced the Power Chamber as their main base of operations. The Power Chamber would still be there, but they'd have a brand new base they can travel to here and back when going to Earth, so that'd be really cool. So we'd have a brand new base for the Rangers. Sure, it'd be another set design and stuff like that, but they wouldn't be using the Astro Megaship, which is the big major change if this Power Rangers in Space version happened. Now, what about Balkan Skull? Now, Balkan Skull could have been very, very interesting, because Balkan Skull were planning to start their own defense force for the city of Angel Grove, so they would have been defending the city from aliens and monsters while the Power Rangers were out in space doing their own thing, because the Power Rangers can't be on Earth all the time, they're out hunting for Zordon in space. So Balkan Skull, they would have basically started up their own way of the Silver Guardians or something like that, which is really cool. So I would have loved to see that. I mean, I'm sure there would have been hijinks and comedy stuff all around, but to see Balkan Skull start off a defense force for the city, being like, alright, we gotta start this up, we gotta defend the people who are on this planet, the Power Rangers have gone for a while, that is really cool. I would have loved to see that. And last on the list, it's very, very interesting. Now, at the start of the video, we talked about how there was no Andros planned at the start, or no Astrometer planned at the start. During pre-production, there was also no Silver Ranger planned at the start. Well, they were unsure if they were going to use it or not. So, reading one of the notes from Shuki Levy, one of the emails back and forth to the producers and the writers and stuff like that, there's a bunch of bullet points that he wrote down. And number 6 is very, very interesting, where it says, I don't have an answer as to whether the Delta Megazord belongs to the Silver Ranger. We don't have any footage yet, and we should also discuss whether to bring the Silver Ranger in at all. So that's very interesting. They were discussing if they should bring in the Silver Ranger or not, because they would have danced around it entirely and skipped over those Sentai footage episodes or Sentai footage scenes with the Silver Ranger. And then number 8 is Silver Ranger questions. So Shuki Levy was very, very unsure whether he wanted to use the Silver Ranger or all, and that makes sense, because I'm sure that this is a day before the internet. This is the mid-late 90s, and there was no internet, there was no file sharing, so they would have been getting a bunch of tapes from Toei whether to use this footage or not. And I believe Mega Ranger was in maybe 1998 or 1997, whether they were going to use this footage or not, so it was very, very new to them. So it was a decision if they wanted to use this footage or not, and we could have gotten a season where there was no Zane and no Andros in early pre-productions of Power Rangers in Space. That is crazy. So no Silver Ranger, no Andros, it would have been a very, very different show. So yeah, that's pretty much what could have been Power Rangers in Space. Now, if you want to check this stuff out for yourself, I'll have a link to the links in the description down below. You can check it out. There's more than Power Rangers in Space in this little page. There's a lot to go over. I mean, there's like one for almost every season with early scripts and stuff like that. I did a live stream where I read a script for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy where Cassie was on the team and she morphed and stuff, and then I also read the Mega Ranger stuff that I went over. I'll have a little annotation at the end of the video if you want to see that. So click on the little cards at the end of the video, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, take care, and thank you for watching. Bye!